Hello, friends, and welcome in to The Lord and the Rings. No, we're not trying to figure out if Jesus had rings. We're trying to figure out if there is an amazing intersection, and there is, between Middle-earth and the world of the Bible, between Tolkien and Jesus. So that's what we're doing here. And we have been reading through The Lord of the Rings. We just started like last week. And so if you're just tuning in, please join us. But for the rest of us, I hope you enjoyed chapter 1. This was an amazing read. It is so fun to just to get rolling. Like, this is it. This is Middle Earth. We are in, and the party has started. And I do mean that as a pun. Let's do a quick summary of chapter 1, and then we will jump into my 10 highlights. And I might ask some questions, might have some surprises along the way. So make sure to stay till the end. And then, of course, I would love for you to subscribe, ring the bell of notifications, but then also, please jump into the conversation. If I'm wrong, correct me. If you have questions, ask away. I want to learn and grow in this. First maybe not in importance order, but first in the world of Tolkien lore, and then also with my walk with Jesus. And so if you have connections, if you have applications, whatever, man, please, let's have a conversation. Let's encourage each other. So chapter 1, Bilbo Baggins, a famous eccentric hobbit in Hobbiton. He throws the biggest of birthdays for his 111 birthday. His, what do they call it? 111st, 111. Why am I brain farting right now? That's embarrassing. I should probably start this video over, but we're not going to do that. At the very end of the party, he disappears during his speech. Why does he do that? Well, thus begins the magic ring. Right? The ring. What is this ring? We still don't know much about it. If we're being honest, if we're not reading ahead, he acquired it on an adventure. He returns back home where Gandalf finds him. They have conversations. Some crazy things happen. Gandalf encourages him to leave the ring to his heir, Frodo. But suddenly Bilbo's not wanting to do that. So there's this struggle as we introduce this main character of the book, the ring. Will he part with the ring? Will he not? He relents. And then you have Gandalf with Frodo as Bilbo leaves. And he's told to keep the ring secret and safe. And then Frodo's got to give gifts away to all of Bilbo's friends and family and so forth. Gandalf appears again. He's troubled. And they begin to have even more conversations. And so it sounds like a pretty ordinary chapter, but you guys just got into it. Here are my 10 highlights that I want to name and then talk through as how they introduce amazing thoughts, themes, and even if we can press a little bit, get into the Christian worldview as we today want to follow Jesus closer. So here's number 1. Elves and dragons, I says to him. Cabbages and potatoes are better for me and you. Don't go getting mixed up in the business of your betters, or you'll land in trouble too big for you, I says to him. Now, I wanted to jump into that because it kind of can feel a little bit jolting to think, they're like, man, who's saying this? This is the gaffer saying to some other hobbits. We got Old Noakes, we've got a stranger, and he's saying this about Sam, and he's giving advice, and I think that it is bad advice and good advice at the same time. Okay, here's what I mean by that. I think it's bad advice because, hey, forget about elves and dragons, Sam. Let's stick to cabbages and potatoes, okay? What that does is that quenches the magic of the world. If you've ever received advice like this, it can be very jolting. It can be just quenching, where it's like, man, I wanted to look for the adventure, for the magic of this world, and it's just getting cut off. I think that's what's happening here with Sam, and we're grateful that Sam does not take the old gaffer's advice. But I think it's also good advice in that it can remind Sam to stay rooted, to cherish and love the ordinary, which is a very Hobbit thing. Old Gaffer is a very much a quintessential Hobbit in many ways. And I think that's good for us too, that a lot of times if our lives are just chasing off elves and dragons, we forget that the cabbages and potatoes, the ordinary, normal things of life, can seem bad or like chores. And I think we can take Gaffer's advice and say, man, no, I think maybe there's a both and here. And so I just think this is fun because again, this is the world of what Sam and Frodo and Pippin and Merry are about to explore, this crazy world and what they're leaving behind in the Shire. It is this absolute merger of you've got to stay rooted, but you've got to adventure out. Now, how that applies to us, we could talk a lot more about. Maybe we'll get into it a little bit more as this video unfolds, but it's this stay rooted, stay comfortable, stay tethered to reality, but adventure out at the same time. That is so much a tension of life. And I think it's just found so well here in these words. Okay, let's go to highlight number 9. And yes, we do them in reverse order because it's so fun counting down to 1, isn't it? So here's the context. Maybe I should give context a little bit. The party's about to begin. And when an odd-looking wagon approaches Baggins, and upon that wagon are great bundles of fireworks. Okay, so let's see what happens. That was Gandalf's mark, of course, and the old man was Gandalf the wizard, whose fame in the Shire was due mainly to his skill with fires, smokes, and lights. His real business was far more difficult and dangerous, but the Shire folk knew nothing about it. So why I think that is so cool is, again, here comes Gandalf. And to the Hobbit eyes, Gandalf is really he's up to no good, and he's got little trifles of magic that he messes with. But, you hear it all the time from martial artists, especially like men that actually have like power that could knock off our heads without even batting an eye. Men that have true power, if they're truly powerful and truly capable, are never the loudest in the room. It's the men that are loudest that are usually the most insecure, and they've got to bark a lot because they can't bite. But there is a meekness to powerful men and women that they don't have to be the loudest in the room, and that for Gandalf is absolutely the case. And I think that is so refreshing here as we see Gandalf come in on a wagon with fireworks. It is meekness. And meekness is not something that's cherished, especially in masculinity these days in our world. But meekness is a bridled strength. So it's a military word as we see it in the New Testament. And we know that Tolkien knew his words. Meekness is it's like a war horse that's clothed for war, armored up, but standing still and silent. Like we know that this horse is powerful, and yet it is so calm. And that seems to be Gandalf in this scene. There's a great ignorance on the part of the hobbits, and I think it's just so funny that, they see him as this old man. He's just all about fire and smokes and lights. It's complete ignorance. And when you have a lot of ignorance, you're going to come to bad conclusions. And that's what happens with the hobbits. I think it's a reminder to me to stop trusting my first impression on people. And that might be a hot take, but I think I learned a while back as a pastor that I would quickly categorize people as I met them without even realizing it. I'd put people into buckets, and the Lord would quietly rebuke me over time as I learned that I was wrong. Almost always I was wrong. My first impression of people was wrong. There is more to Gandalf that meets the eye. There is more to the people around us. And so let's explore them. That's kind of where I want to connect it to. Being a disciple of Jesus is being a learner, and that is learning from Jesus. That is learning from the Bible. And I think that's learning from the people around us as well, that they are subtle surprises every time. And so people are fascinating. They are as fascinating as you are fascinating, and you are a fascinating person. I know that because you're made in the image of God. And so just thinking of, it's just a fun connection to think of, man, how I view other people is like Gandalf only being good for fire, smokes, and lights. There is so much more that beats the eye. Okay, let's go to the third highlight. And a quick context. The day of the party is mounting. It's building. More and more surprises are surfacing. And this is one of my favorite descriptions. Here it is. One morning, the hobbits woke to find the large field south of Bilbo's front door covered with ropes and poles for tents. Again, so sorry, there will always be Just me just having typos. That's not Tolkien, that's me. Ropes and poles for tents and pavilions. A special entrance was into the bank leading to the road, and wide steps and a large white gate were built there. The 3 Hobbit families of Bagshot Row adjoining the field were intensely interested and generally envied. The old gaffer Gamgee stopped even pretending to work in his garden. On this occasion, the presents were unusually good. The Hobbit children were so excited that for a while they almost forgot about eating. Now, I think what makes this so precious for me is that as I read this, because of those Hobbit children, I just think of it from their vantage point. Like, these are little Hobbit kids waking up, and just the excitement, if you remember it from childhood, children need that wonder. Every child does. Every child deserves those moments, those pockets of wonder, to have this sort of build up, to anticipate, to look into the future as for these kids, even if it's only a couple hours or a couple days, and see only good. That is a world worth fighting for. I'd say if you have a kiddo in your life, give that to them this week. Give them a moment that builds up and leads to something great. Spend a bit of money on them. Spend time on them. You don't even have to have kids, but if you have one, give them a moment. In the course of their life, they will discover that evil exists, that bad guys exist, and they will have to deal with them at some point, like all of us have had to do. But to remind them that good guys exist as well, that the future can be incredibly bright, and what Jesus has brought us is incredibly bright, both now and especially yet to come, that can make life so magical. And so just to press into this anticipation of a party on the verge of happening, man, our kids need that. And so let's work as adults towards giving them that. Here's the next one. We got the party is now nearing the end. Bilbo steps up for the speech, which nobody apparently ever looks forward to. Bilbo starts out amazingly in their eyes, but it starts to crumble as he begins to do stuff like this. I don't know half of you half as well as I should like. And I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve. This was unexpected and rather difficult. There was some scattered clapping, but most of them were trying to work it out and see if it came to a compliment. Now, I mention this because we love hobbits for their simplicity. We know their clothing, their laughter, their gardening, their food, their cheer, their parties, just this overall simplicity. But with all the glories, there is always garbage on the other side of glory. Simple people are often simple. And that works both ways. Tolkien does a great job of building these characters, these creatures, this whole race without romanticizing the hobbits. If you look closely, there is an ignorance to hobbits. There is a false sense of peace and delusion to hobbits. I did a whole video on that. There is a gossiping to hobbits. There is a lack of adventure. They've never even climbed the 3 towers. They are wonderful creatures, but they are quite pitiful too. And I think this is good to remember as we live too, that there are glories wherever you live. So I live in the South. That comes with some amazing things. I'm in Arkansas. Amazing. That comes with some garbage too. And you can never only have the glory and you can never only have the garbage. There is always both. It can be easy in life to cricket around. Some of us move because we want to. Some of us have to. But I think it's so good when you can put your roots down. You can take the good with the bad, which means always taking a look in the mirror and how I contribute to the good, to the glory, to the bad, to the garbage, and to live from there. And so just to see these hobbits try to piece together this compliment, which to be honest, I had to piece it together too my first time. So I guess I'm a bit of I'm simple as well, but it's just so fun to see this world building and just to realize that, man, these hobbits, they're great, but they're a little bit dumb too. Okay, let's go on to the next highlight. We've got, I guess, the context first. Bilbo has his fun. He has his joke. This is highlight number 6, counting down. And he vanishes from the speech with a bang that we learn Gandalf provided. And we get our first moment with Frodo. It's always amazing when you can get into the head of one of your main characters. We get this. But at the same time, Frodo felt deeply troubled. He realized suddenly that he loved the old hobbit dearly. Most of the guests went on eating and drinking and discussing Bilbo Baggins' oddities, past and present. But the Sackville Bagginses had already departed in wrath. Frodo did not want to have any more to do with the party. He gave orders for more wine to be served. Then he got up and drained his own glass silently to the health of Bilbo and slipped out of the pavilion. So this is our hero. And it's our first really true moment with him. And we find out that Frodo he's pretty deep. He's got some weight to him. He's pretty profound. He's a thinker. He's a feeler. He's definitely not a killjoy. But there are levels to him that Bilbo doesn't have, that Pippin doesn't have. And so it's good for these Shire scenes to extend on for many pages. There's a lot of readers who for decades now have complained that Tolkien drew out the party and just Hobbit scenes longer than he should have. Let's get to the plot. But we have to fall in love with the Shire as people. We have to do that. And we have to see Frodo's love for the Shire, because it is Frodo's love for the Shire that will actually help him to leave the Shire in order to save the Shire. I don't think Bilbo loves the Shire in the same way that Frodo does. And so to see Frodo love Bilbo, love the Shire, he's able to start and finish this epic trek because he loves that which he has left. And so it's just really good to get these moments. And this is our first one here in chapter 1 with Frodo, and we've got a lot of Frodo left. All right, let's get to highlight 5. The context is the invisible Bilbo is followed by the wizard Gandalf back into his hobbit hole. The joke's over, Bilbo's going to leave, and he means it. And we get a famous snapshot of the overall well-being of Bilbo, and it's not very good. All right, let's look. I am old, Gandalf. I don't look it, but I'm beginning to feel it in my heart of hearts. Well preserved indeed, he snorted. Sorry about the underscores there. Those are me. Why, I feel all thin, sort of, stretched, if you know what I mean, like butter that has been scraped over too much bread. That can't be right. I need a change or something. Well, definitely something. Make no mistake, this is the work of the ring. And we're beginning to see it in subtle ways. It gets a lot more explicit as things unravel, even very, very soon. The ring gives powers, several glories, to keep using that phrase, that turn out always to sour into more garbage. For one, Bilbo hasn't aged. And we learned that age isn't equivalent to a brimming, vibrant life. Bilbo's life isn't extending. He is just existing. And so it's like bread that has just only so much butter on it. That butter is like his life, brimming. You can't get more of that. So it's just going to be spread out more and more. Ultimately, to the ultimate end, you've got the ring wraiths, which have been so spread out that they have no more vibrancy, no more life. They are just existing forever. And so we get a little picture of how a ring wraith starts. And that's where Bilbo is. And it's because of the ring. This is Bilbo's trajectory. If he does not get rid of this ring, he will become a ring wraith. So this is a high stakes moment, though we don't quite maybe feel it quite yet, especially with such a clever metaphor, or I guess simile. Like butter that has been scraped over too much bread, but then you start to see, man, what is the difference between being well preserved, feeling all thin, being stretched, and actually living? So pretty big moment. Okay, let's go to number 4. Here we go. The context as the conversation continues between Bilbo and Gandalf there in Bilbo's hobbit hole, and the subject of Frodo comes up again. He would come with me, of course, if I asked him. In fact, he offered to once, just before the party, but he does not really want to yet. I want to see the wild country again before I die, and the mountains. He is still in love with the Shire, with woods and fields and little rivers. He ought to be comfortable here. I am leaving everything to him, of course, except a few oddments. I hope he will be happy. When he gets used to being on his own, it's time he was his own master now. So this is a key moment to contrast Bilbo with Frodo. We've talked about this a couple minutes ago, that Bilbo wants out. He desires the mountains and Rivendell's and the dwarves, but Frodo is not like that. Bilbo interprets that as he's not like that yet. I think he's assuming that Frodo will be like him one day, and I just don't think that's the case. It's not that Frodo is a coward. It's just that he loves the Shire. That's why he doesn't want to leave. Hot take, but Bilbo would never have been able to make his way all the way to Mordor. He did not have a love for the Shire that was, burning hot enough. I think he would have turned back. Frodo can only leave the Shire and fight for the Shire because of his love for the Shire. And again, that's not saying anything bad about Bilbo. This is just the way it was meant to happen. Bilbo would not have been able to do it. Frodo can. And we need to highlight that in Frodo, that there is this low, ordinary, tethered to his world love that is what motivates him to leave it. It's pretty profound. Okay, we get to highlight number 3. For context, the conversation again, it's unraveling. The suspense is building on what this ring is, and really if Bilbo can even give it up. So let's read. It is mine, I tell you, my own, my precious. Yes, my precious. The wizard's face remained grave and attentive, and only a flicker in his deep eyes showed that he was startled and indeed alarmed. It has been called that before, he said, but not by you. But I say it now, and why not? Even if Gollum said the same once, it's not his now, but mine, and I shall keep it, I said. Sorry about that. Gandalf stood up. He spoke sternly. You will be a fool if you do, Bilbo, he said. You make that clear with every word you say. It has got far too much a hold on you. Let it go, and then you can go yourself and be free. I'll do as I choose and go as I please, said Bilbo obstinately. Now, my dear Hobbit, said Gandalf. All your long life we have been friends, and you owe me something. Come, do as you promised. Give it up. Well, if you want my ring yourself, say so, cried Bilbo. But you won't get it. I won't give my precious away, I tell you. His hand strayed to the hilt of his small sword. Okay, so that is about as intense as it gets. And ding, 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 I've just recorded a video on this scene. It should be posted. And so go watch it because it deserves a deeper look. We're going to press into the irrationality of sin. This is, I think, the best picture of sin that we have. So go check it out. But just real quick, from this scene, we get to know Sauron's will to dominate. That's what his ring is and what it does. Second, what Bilbo will soon be freed from. Do not miss Gandalf's word and promise. Be free. And third, we see what Frodo is going to soon bear. This is the weight. This is the burden. This is the shackle that Frodo is about to have for a long time, and it's worse than we can even imagine. For Bilbo to put his hand on the hilt of his sword against Gandalf, who is rationally his great friend and 10,000 times as an Astari wizard, his strength, that's the work of the ring. Bilbo is way more consumed by the ring than we think at this moment. So let's all feel the sigh of Middle-earth as this poor hobbit is freed from this ring. But let's also feel the weight of Frodo having to soon pick it up. It's pretty heavy. Let's go to highlight number 2 as we're getting really close. The conversation concludes. Yes, Bilbo has given up the ring. And the first thing he does is sing, which I think is so powerful. Here is his song. The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way, where many paths and errands meet. And whither then? I cannot say. Bilbo sings. And he taps into a huge theme for Tolkien, the road, which is like a mighty river that sweeps you up and carries you off, where all these little rivulets, paths, and errands, and people, and occasions, and circumstances all collide in this thing called life, or the road. It's absolutely a magical way of thinking about your life. And I think one that Christians can tap into with a deep, deep doctrine of God's sovereignty, of God's bigness, of his control, of his providence, that when we ask, whither then? Like, what's going to happen today? Who knows and who cares in some sense? Because God is orchestrating all things for his good, his glory, our good. So life, as hard as it can be, is an exclamation point. It's not a question mark. But it only happens when we put it away, the ring, and we kill the darker things of life which weigh us down. And so the fact that Bilbo puts away this ring, and the first thing he does is sing, it's just so poetic. It's so powerful. Maybe I should do a video on it, but that's enough for now. We have our last highlight. And the context is that as the chapter concludes, Bilbo leaves. Frodo enters the scene with Gandalf deep in thought. And we get a final moment between these two before Gandalf takes off himself. They, of course, discuss the ring, which Gandalf doesn't yet know is the ring. And so here is the text. Let it be a warning to you to be very careful with it. It may have other powers than just making you vanish when you wish to. I don't understand, said Frodo. Neither do I, answered the wizard. I have merely begun to wonder about the ring, especially since last night. No need to worry, but if you take my advice, you will use it very seldom or not at all. At least I beg you not to I botched it again. In any way that will cause talk or arouse suspicion. I say again, keep it safe and keep it secret. You are very mysterious. What are you afraid of? I'm not certain, so I will say no more. Well, besides the fact that I keep botching my slides, I'm so sorry about that. Gandalf continues to talk for a bit, but I just want to pause and I want to end right there with the seemingly infinite humility of this wizard. And that's how I want to end. To say, I don't know, I'm not certain today is incredibly rare. For a wizard, in a time of confusion and need to admit ignorance, that is not knowing, is so honest. And it hits me maybe particularly because I'm a pastor who is asked 1,000 questions a week, theologically, politically, culturally. And the older I'm getting, ironically, the more willing I am to say, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. Let me think a little bit more. Let me look a little bit more into that. That's when I'm at my best, okay? In my insecurity, I'll pretend often, I'll fake often, and that's not humility. That's not trustworthy. And so I'm working on this myself. I've gotten a lot better, and I learned from Gandalf here. I don't know how this applies to you, but I think we can all learn from the wizard today just to admit what's true. If you know something, then speak up, be bold. If you don't speak up, be humble. And that's good for me. That's good for you. So there's our chapter 1 recap. I do hope that you enjoyed it. If it's too short, if it's too long, if it's too anything or not enough something, please comment. Please, let's work to get this thing better. So I can handle, some constructive critiques. If you want to be mean, I can handle that too. I'd rather you not, but that's fine. Please subscribe, bring others into the company. We are going to read chapter 2 now. So, well, not right now, but maybe right now if you want to go ahead and do that. We are going to be posting another video. And until then, watch one of these videos or one of the other ones I put out throughout the week. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.